The world of geopolitics is once again buzzing with tension and disbelief as India quietly executes one of the boldest energy maneuvers in recent years, a move that has not only shaken Washington but also sent ripples through global oil markets. It's being called the deal no one saw coming, a strategic masterstroke that redefines India's position between the West and Russia. And as the details unfold, the entire world is asking, how did New Delhi manage to outsmart both the sanctions and the system? It started quietly. No major press conference, no leaks, no loud declarations. Behind the closed doors of South Block and the Ministry of Petroleum, India's negotiators were working tirelessly. As Western nations tightened sanctions on Russian crude and applied pressure on countries trading with Moscow, India didn't fold. Instead, it adapted. It found new routes, new payment systems, and a whole new diplomatic language, one that spoke the tone of sovereignty. Sources reveal that this latest deal involves not just crude oil, but also refined products, the lifeblood of economies. And what's even more surprising is that some of this Russian oil is being sold onward, indirectly to Western markets through Indian refineries. In other words, the same nations sanctioning Moscow are now unknowingly buying back Russian energy from Indian companies. It's a diplomatic irony, a geopolitical loop that only New Delhi could have pulled off with such finesse. As Washington watches closely, officials have started to express their concern, or as some call it, frustration. The U.S. State Department has reportedly warned India that continued deepening of energy ties with PHS Moscow could impact future trade talks. But here's the twist. India isn't flinching. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's administration knows that India's economy, growing at one of the fastest rates globally, cannot afford to be dictated to. Not by Washington, not by Brussels, not by anyone. The Indian message is clear. National interest first, always. This stance isn't new, but its assertiveness is. Over the past few years, India has transitioned from being a quiet observer of global politics to an active, confident player. Whether it's buying discounted Russian oil or signing defense deals with the United States, New Delhi has shown that strategic autonomy is not just a slogan, it's a policy. And this oil deal highlights that philosophy perfectly. Analysts have noted that Indian refineries like Niara and Reliance are refining Russian crude into diesel, aviation fuel, and other products, then exporting them globally, including 2 countries that have sanctioned Russia. It's completely legal under current frameworks. It's clever, it's pragmatic, it's pure geopolitics at work. But what happens when the world's largest democracy stands firm against global pressure? The reactions have been fascinating. European diplomats have privately admitted that India's approach, though inconvenient for the West, is undeniably effective. Russia, on the other hand, sees India as its most reliable economic partner in Asia. The flow of energy has strengthened the Moscow-New Delhi axis in ways few anticipated. The U.S., however, views this differently. While the Biden administration has avoided direct confrontation, there's growing discomfort in Washington about India's balancing act. Trade officials argue that these energy dealings make it difficult to finalize broader economic frameworks. Yet, paradoxically, American companies are still investing heavily in India's tech and manufacturing sectors because they know that the Indian market is simply too important to ignore. So, where does this leave India? In a uniquely powerful position. For the first time in decades, New Delhi is not being forced to choose sides. It's dictating terms. It's saying yes to cooperation, no to coercion, and maybe to anything that doesn't align with its long-term vision. And that vision is clear. India wants to be an energy hub. It's a manufacturing powerhouse and a diplomatic bridge between East and West. But let's look deeper into the strategy. The oil trade is only one layer. Beneath it lies a complex network of financial systems, rupee-based settlements, currency swaps, and alternative shipping insurance mechanisms that bypass Western systems like SWIFT. India and Russia have been quietly building this alternative network since 2022, and now it's starting to show results. Each oil shipment that sails from Novorossiysk to Jamnagar tells a story not just of trade, but of transformation. It symbolizes India's shift from dependency to self-determination. It also sends a subtle but unmistakable message to the West. The world is no longer unipolar. Inside Washington, this message is being decoded with growing anxiety. Reports suggest that U.S. diplomats have increased their engagements with New Delhi, seeking reassurances that India's deepening energy partnership with Russia won't affect the broader strategic relationship between the two democracies. But as insiders put it, Modi's government is not interested in reassurance. It's interested in respect. The irony is, while American officials publicly criticize India's oil imports, private energy traders in Europe quietly admit that Indian refineries have become vital to maintaining global supply stability. If India stopped refining Russian oil today, energy prices would skyrocket. That's the geopolitical paradox. The very countries opposing India's strategy are also benefiting from it. Meanwhile, Russia couldn't be happier. For Moscow, India has become an economic lifeline. The oil exports that once flowed to Europe are now redirected to Asia, with India emerging as the biggest buyer. Payment settlements in rupees and dirhams help Moscow bypass the dollar system, something President Putin has long advocated for. And as the U.S. tries to isolate Russia economically, India is ensuring that the global energy map stays multipolar. This entire development has led analysts to call India the balancing superpower. It's no longer a silent partner. It's a chess player, one that makes its moves slowly, strategically, and always in its own interest. Okay, but make no mistake, this balancing act isn't without challenges. Domestically, the government faces pressure from both sides. Western allies who expect solidarity and domestic critics who accuse New Delhi of taking too many risks with Washington. Yet, public sentiment in India remains firmly supportive of the government's independent stance. Many see it as a moment of pride, proof that India no longer dances to anyone else's tune. As the story unfolds, the bigger question looms. What does this mean for global geopolitics in the next decade? If India continues to grow economically and maintains such balanced diplomacy, it could very well redefine the global order. The 21st century won't be about one superpower leading it LLB, about multiple powers negotiating. And in that emerging world, India is already positioning itself as the ultimate mediator, the voice that can talk to Washington, Moscow, and Beijing in the same week. The next few months will be crucial. Trade negotiations between India and the U.S. are ongoing, and Washington will likely use these as leverage. But New Delhi, having already weathered Western criticism for its stance on Ukraine, is unlikely to bend. Expect more tough negotiations, more closed-door diplomacy, and more headlines that capture India's defiance. As one senior Indian diplomat reportedly said, "We are no longer afraid of pressure. We are shaping it." It's a statement that perfectly summarizes the new India, bold, self-assured, and globally consequential. Whether it's oil from Russia, semiconductors from the U.S., or defense technology from France, India is engaging with everyone, but on its own terms. And as global powers adjust to this reality, one thing is clear: the age of unipolar dominance is over. The future belongs to nations that can balance, adapt, and assert. India today stands at that exact intersection, confident and completely in control. The oil may be Russian, the ships may sail through international waters, but the strategy is unmistakably Indian.